Good afternoon. I'm Diane D'Imperio, League Member and Co-Chair of Voter Services, and I'll be the moderator for the County Commissioner District 3 panel. There are two candidates for the County Commission District 3 seat that will appear by name on the general election ballot. They are Anna Precia of the Democratic Party and Joy Glanzer of the Republican Party. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for joining us today. Alachua County Commissioners are elected for a 4-year term with no term limits. Seats are elected by the county at large, so all registered voters in Alachua County, regardless of their place of residence, may cast a vote in all county commission races. At the time of the election, though, the candidates must live in the district that they would represent. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for an opening statement. Following the opening statement, I will read questions that are prepared by the League of Women Voters, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. There will be 6 questions in total, and I will rotate the order in which the candidates respond. The candidates then will each have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will be able to see the timer, who will indicate the remaining time at 30 seconds, and then when it's time to stop. Please stop when your time is up. If you do not, your microphone may be muted. We will now begin with the candidates' opening statements. You will have 1.5 minutes, and we'll begin in alphabetical order with Joy Glanzer. Your statement, please.
Thank you so much for having us here today. I really appreciate it. My name is Joy Glanzer, and I'm running for the Alachua County Commission District 3 seat. I believe I can pretty much wrap up the reason why I believe I should serve on the commission by quoting the Gainesville Sun's endorsement of me. They said I would bring geographic and ideological diversity to the commission, helping keep commissioners from marching in lockstep without hard questions being asked. I believe diversity is more than race and gender, and it's needed on our commission. Living in Alachua County for the last 47 years has blessed me with a full and enriched life. I spent most of it as a public service servant while running my businesses. Good government depends on never forgetting who we serve. Decisions I made while serving on the City of Newberry Commission demonstrates my commitment to that truth. My job was clear: to prepare a budget that respected the citizens, their finances, their neighborhoods, and to provide what the budget could afford. Going through the 470-page Alachua County budget is something most citizens probably don't do, but it's a job I will tackle with intense scrutiny. Doing the work of the people is not political. It's the duty elected officials are charged with, and it's not left or right. It's clear and unambiguous. Collect taxes, provide public safety, and other essential services. The current national climate with political party wars has trickled down to our community. The war among parties must stop, and it'll stop with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Precia, your introductory statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Anna Precia, and I'm a Democratic candidate for Alachua County Commission District 3. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and while I agree with Joy that we need to stop the party wars and start having real conversations, I am committed to making sure that we're a place where all of our citizens can thrive and lead happy, healthy lives. I will work to protect our environment, build our local economy, and ensure equity and justice for our whole community. I've been working on the front lines in our community for almost 2 decades. I've been working on food access, education, and economic development. From founding and directing the UF Office of Sustainability to working at IFAS to run the Field and Fork program, I've spent my career developing programs, managing budgets, and implementing policies that find win-win solutions that are creative, collaborative, and practical. My work in the community, establishing working food and volunteering with many grassroots organizations, has given me a deep understanding that disparities are our greatest challenge, and the need to focus on affordable housing, food security, and healthcare is imperative. I want to be sure that our policies and programs are focusing on providing infrastructure that our people and our businesses need, especially in these challenging times. And I want to look for ways we can solve complex challenges like climate change while providing economic opportunity. As a mother, I think about the world my daughter will inherit, and I want to be sure she has a vibrant, safe, and inclusive community to live in. And I will serve Alachua County to ensure I leave this legacy for my daughter and all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move on to our prepared questions. You will have 2 minutes to answer each question. We will start with the second candidate alphabetically and then rotate the order in which the candidates will respond to the question. So for our first question, we will begin with Anna Precia. What are your thoughts about the county's role in funding health services for low-income uninsured residents, especially after the choices money runs out?
It's a great question. I believe that our county is here to provide social services and support our citizens, especially those that are the most vulnerable. And so I think it's really important that we find ways to provide healthcare support for our most vulnerable and lowest income population. I think that our health department has done some of that work well, and there's room for improvement in some ways as well. And I would be sure to prioritize healthcare for everyone. Thank you.
Joy Glanzer, your response, please.
Thank you. Would you repeat the question, Diane? I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, of course. What are your thoughts about the county's role in funding health services for low-income uninsured residents, especially after the choices money runs out?
Well, we're lucky in Alachua County to have a great health services department. And I think the county needs to partner with them more to provide services where they're not. I believe the Acorn clinics had to close up due to lack of funding. And I know that that situation was dire in those outlying areas. I would try to work with those agencies that are able to provide more health care in ways that the county can partner with them. Again, we're so lucky to have such a great healthcare network here with all the hospitals and clinics, but we need to do more. There's a great need for that, and especially in the rural areas. And I would try to work with those outlying communities to do more to serve those healthcare needs.
Thank you. Our next question, we will begin with Joy Glanzer. Please describe how you think the county should balance the business interest of land developers with the concerns about issues like groundwater protection that are expressed by the environmentalists.
Well, I'm a great environmentalist myself, believe it or not. Some people think that being a real estate broker is all about selling houses, but it's about a lot more. I mean, there are days when I'm a social worker trying to help people find ways to pay the utilities and pay their rent. I think the reason developers come here and want to build neighborhoods is because we've done a great job in making it a beautiful community. People would not want to be moving here if it wasn't a great place to live. So what we need to do is balance that with proper zoning. Don't pave over paradise, as I say. We need to put housing developments where they belong, where they're not in sensitive areas, they're not in wetlands, and we need to make sure that our stormwater runoff is done in a modern scientific way so that it doesn't pollute our groundwater is not polluted. So there are ways to work with developers, and as a commissioner, because I'm in the industry, I can work, I have those conversations to hold their feet to the fire for the zoning and to make sure they're not just minimally complying with those zoning regs, but to make sure that they're doing it in a way that is beneficial to the whole county. So I speak the language. I'm at that table when those decisions are being made already. And I think I'd be a great voice on behalf of the county to make sure developers do development in a good, safe, clean way.
Anna Precia, your response, please.
Sure, thank you. Well, I would definitely agree with Joy that we need to have smart growth and that we need to be thinking about where we're putting development and ensuring that we're starting to think about, focusing on our urban cores and transit-oriented development as we think about the ways in which we're going to protect our environment while also continuing to grow sustainably. But I also think that we need to look at the decisions that are being made on the ground once development is getting started and look at things like in-ground irrigation, which is the #1 use of potable water. Over 50% of potable water is being used on lawns and landscapes. And that's a real challenge. Not only is it a challenge for water quantity, but it's also a challenge for water quality as people use pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers on their lawns. So we need to look at some of those more in-depth policies, like how do we support and incentivize native landscaping and reduce high intensive types of turf so that we can reduce the amount of fertilizers and pesticides that are ending up in our waterways. Thank you.
For our next question, we will ask Anna Precia to begin. Please discuss the role that you think county government should play in promoting racial justice.
Well, I think the county should play a leadership role in promoting racial justice and equity. I'm excited that the county is in the process of hiring our first equity officer, and I look forward, if I'm elected, to working with that person to really look at our own internal policies and walk the talk first and foremost by ensuring racial justice and equity in every aspect of what the county is doing. And in particular, looking at our contracts and the way in which we're promoting equity and diversity in our hiring and our contracting purchasing decisions. I also want to see us working in the community on things to increase the power and decision-making opportunities for communities of color to be at the table while we're making decisions on things like community development and economic development. I think as the largest contributor to the CRA here in the city of Gainesville, we also need to work with our city. And I think that my relationships with city commissioners and city government, having worked with them for so many years here, will help in thinking about how we do equitable development on the east side as we use that redevelopment money in the most thoughtful manner possible. Thank you.
Joy Glanzer, your answer, please.
Sure. There are inequitable situations all across the county, whether it's in the schools, in housing, in transportation. It's a great disparity that we need to take a hard look at. I'm very excited for the Truth and Reconciliation Initiative that Commissioner Hutchinson brought about 3 years ago. And when I was with the city of Newberry, we signed onto it immediately. One of the first events we had was well, there's a lot of events we've had, but it really opened my eyes to the situations that, I mean, as white people, we can't know what it's like, but that Truth and Reconciliation Initiative has helped us to really integrate ourselves into that culture. We went last summer on the bus to Montgomery. We had about 45 citizens, half black and half white. And I literally sat on the bus next to a gentleman who'd lived 3 blocks from me for 40 years and I'd never met him. And we got to talk about what, really, why are we still segregating ourselves? And so I think we will take a hard look at more ways that we can integrate ourselves into each other's communities. But honestly, we have to get more equitable schools. And when you look at it, there are some schools that don't have the same tools, technologies, facilities that others do. And I don't know why that is, but I'm going to find out. I'm sure that in the budgets, we can find the money to help that situation become more equitable. But I would work hard. That would be a passion of mine, to make sure that our communities are more equitable in all areas.
Our next question, we'll ask Joy Glanzer to be the first responder. The city of Gainesville recently passed a renters' rights ordinance, and we know that advocates will be asking the Board of County Commissioners to pass a similar one. How would you respond to this request?
That's been an interesting situation, because of course we need to get rid of what they call slumlords. I see it every day. I've had tenants call me crying because they're afraid to ask their landlord to fix their water or get their air conditioning fixed because they'll be evicted. There are certain standards that are not being met by any level by some landlords. On the other hand, there are some landlords that are mom and pop that bought this house as an investment, and they do the best they can to keep it in good repair and take care of their tenants. I fear that the act may be burdensome for them. I think looking down the road in a few years, when the level of everything has been raised and the level of the standards have been raised, but I fear in the meantime we may lose some of those mom and pop owners that have not been able to afford that, and they'll have to sell their homes to some investors that are out of town. However, I completely support making sure that our renters have rights and that they can have as good of a situation as possible in their homes. And I think the point of the act was to get rid of I hate to use the word again, slumlord, but they have to raise their standards and make sure that our citizens are safe and feel protected in their own homes. So if it comes to the county, we will take a hard look at it. I want to make sure that both sides are protected, those homeowners that are doing the best they can, and to make it fair. Government isn't always right, but it has to be fair. So that's what I would advocate for that.
And Aprecia, your response, please.
Yes, thank you. I would absolutely support the Renters' Rights Ordinance. I think it is a step, a very important step in the right direction. And I think that while Joy is right, there may be a bit of challenges for a very few businesses who are mom and pop and just can't make the connections meet. I believe that if you make the decision to be in business to provide a service or a product to somebody, then you should be able to provide that quality service or that product. And that includes keeping your house up to standards for energy efficiency and safety and security. And so I believe that by having the ordinance, we can ensure that everyone has that equal opportunity and an equitable opportunity to have safe and affordable housing.
Our next question will start with Anna Prezia. Impact fees are one-time charges imposed on new development to fund the share of the infrastructure cost of expansion. What is your position regarding impact fees?
Impact fees are imposed for lots of different reasons. So I can say that in general, I support impact fees because I believe it's people that are getting the services paying for the services. And I think that impact fees are really important when it comes to things like our schools. It's part of the reason why our school district is struggling so hard to make ends meet and ends up putting a bunch of our budgeting money in our school districts to West Ends and new schools instead of providing all the resources and infrastructure, as Joy mentioned in the last question, for those on our east side and our poorer and lower income schools. So I do support impact fees. I think that impact fees are also an opportunity to look at the way in which we support expanding things like affordable housing. If we can work with developers where we have impact fees to provide lessening of those fees when developers decide to do the right thing and build affordable housing and integrate it into their communities, it's an opportunity to work with them since we've been preempted in sort of mandating affordable housing across our county. Thank you.
Joy Glanzer, your response, please.
Sure. Impact fees are a way of life. I'm afraid they're here and they're not going away. I say we have to pay as we go. Those impact fees do pay for streets, roads, education, utilities, and so forth. But what I want to remind people is that in the end, it's the consumer who pay those. The builders don't just eat that cost. I mean, that is a line item on their budget that has to be paid. That's a part of the cost of building that house. So, you know, if we're going to put impact fees on those developers, we have to remember those are going to be paid by us, the consumer, down the road. They're necessary, that we have to, you know, charge them, like I said, to make sure we can pay for, you know, streets, roads, infrastructure, and so forth. I hope we can not be so burdensome as that the builders will go elsewhere, because we do want good builders here. We want people building houses that are affordable and that are sustainable. But in the end, those fees are paid by the consumer. So you know, it's like you just shuffle. It's a shell game. You can put the money where you want to, but it all ends up being paid by the end user. So they're here to stay, I'm afraid.
Our final question will begin with Joy Glanzer. How would you describe the job our Board of County Commissioners is doing in managing the local response to the pandemic? What would you have done differently, if anything, and how do you think we should move forward?
I think compared to the rest of the state, our county has done an exemplary job of keeping us safe and doing the best they can to give us guidelines to maintain our safety. I'm more concerned about post-COVID. When the federal funds run out and people stop getting their unemployment checks, there's going to be waves of evictions and things we have never seen before. We need a commission that's going to be proactive and sustains good leadership through it and has plans for that. I think curfews, restrictions, and whatnot may have to stay for a while until we feel like we can be safe and go out again. But my policies will be science-driven. I will listen to our health department. I will listen to their guidelines. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, so I listen to the experts. I liken it sometimes to when seatbelts came in used in 1985. I didn't use them. I thought they were silly, and awful. So I would pretend I was wearing one when I saw a police officer. But but I lost a family member because I wasn't wearing one. And guess what? I never did not buckle my seatbelt again. So if I had listened to experts back then, I'd be a happier person. And I'm listening to them now. And whatever they say to do is what we're going to do. And that's how our policies are going to be driven. Our small businesses too are going to need help. I think maybe the county can even partner with grants and leverage grants with anything we can do to help the businesses to survive, because that's where if we can keep the jobs going, then we're going to survive this pandemic. But we can do it, and we will.
And appreciate your response.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that we've done a good job as a county of providing leadership and clear messaging for our community about the need to wear masks, to wash our hands, to socially distance. And I think that we've done a good job of trying to balance the needs of our local businesses to stay open while also providing clear support to ensure that people can be safe while they're shopping and patronizing those businesses. I think that the question was I going to do anything different? If I was going to do anything different, I guess I would say there has been some good communication between our local municipalities, or at least the city of Gainesville and the University of Florida. I think we could have done a better job of trying to coordinate with all of our municipalities on these things earlier. I think we could have put a little more pressure on the University of Florida with regards to the way they're handling our students in our community. And I think that I would like to see us doing a little bit better job of getting the CARES money that we've gotten, the federal assistance that we've gotten out more quickly to our community. I've heard from a lot of our citizens, as I've talked to voters, that they've applied for funding, but they're not getting that funding in a timely manner. And so I think we could, sort of think about how we can adjust that system to get that money in the hands of the people who need it quickly so that they can pay their bills. Those are the things that I would do differently. Thank you.
Now we will move on to the closing statements. Excuse me, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes. We will hear the candidates' closing statements in the reverse order from the opening statements. So we will begin with Ana Precia.
Well, I just want to say a big thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. I know it's a really important service so that our citizens can listen to all of the candidates and make informed decisions. So thank you for that. I'm excited for the opportunity to lead our community. I know it isn't going to be an easy time to be in office. We will not only have budgetary challenges, but the challenge of continuing to keep our community safe and to make big decisions about infrastructure projects, to respond to climate change, and also things that are needed for public safety, like a new radio system that's going to be very expensive. But I'm prepared, and I have the experience working in complex bureaucracies to navigate those budgets, to understand how to collaborate and create public-private partnerships, and how to bring a unique perspective to county government while also ensuring we're continuing to protect our environment, build a resilient local economy, and bring justice and equity for everyone. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Joy Clanzer, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you again for having us this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for doing this to educate our voters. I decided to run for county commission to give a voice to the unheard and to give diversity and thought and geography to the commission. I will represent the whole county, and I will listen to them. And there's another side to listening. When you listen, you also have to hear, and I will hear them. And I promise to do that. Our taxpayers deserve to be heard and to be represented. I spent my whole life in public service, and I want to continue to do so. I'm well prepared to take on this challenge. As a business owner all my life, I've made budgets, I've provided jobs. I know what it takes to survive economic disasters and maintain balance. And balance is essential in a good government. So go to the polls on November 3rd, vote. That's my message. Thank you again.
Thank you, candidates, for attending the forum and for your thoughtful responses to our questions. This ends the panel for County Commission District 3.